Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday episode of Zero to One. If you're new here, this is an event that we do every single week for our members and those who are, curious to maybe join the community. You're very welcome. We'd love to see you as well. And it's a session that changes all the time in terms of the content. We try to focus it on practical advice on topics which can help our member base, which is typically founders and entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, maybe you're a fractional executive or freelancer or something in that capacity, usually in a non-corporate space, I guess. So as you'll have probably seen, if you look back on the catalog, we've covered topics to do with like personal branding or accounting support or tax efficiencies or even just lessons from founders and things like that. And we know that there's a big demand for talking about technology and all the exciting things that are happening at a blistering pace. If you've been following the news, there was another big upgrade to, say, ChatGPT, for example, last week with the launch of ChatGPT 5. And I think there's still, discussions about how does that change things. Obviously, it seems like it seems to be better from a thinking point of view and a learning point of view, but we're still scratching on that surface as well. And we know that this is definitely one of the topics which gets asked about quite a lot as well from our members of like how can I make the most of the technology, especially if you're a solo operator or a business of one, how can you use this technology to help you? But I think what we can't forget is the fact that, there's still a human there, there's still your expertise, there's still, what makes you unique, your skill sets and everything like that. And so we're really excited that the topic of this week for episode 36 is called Why We Still Need Humans. And we're really excited that Lianne is joining us here as somebody who has expertise both in, being able to break this down from a human point of view, but also to bridge that with what we're seeing from an AI point of view. So Lianne, thanks for joining us and really great to have you here. And maybe if you just want to kick off with a little introduction to yourself, and then we'll get into the slides and things like that.
Sure, absolutely. Maybe I'll go ahead and share, Jamie. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here and share some knowledge that I have. I do work in the AI space, and I hear about different challenges from our clients all the time. So hopefully, this session will be useful for folks who are looking to venture into, deploying AI solutions. So let me, if you will allow me, let me go ahead and share my screen now, just because there's a little bit of an intro slide about me. Can you see this okay? Let me switch it out to presentation mode. Yeah, is that
Yeah,
showing up okay?
all
Okay,
good. Yeah.
awesome. Fun fact, that photo is AI generated. That's why I got a little bit of glow up. It's super cheap, $17. You can get 100 headshots.
Right.
So if you're a freelancer, you're trying to cut the budget a little bit, it's called a try it on headshot.
Yeah.
$17 and you will get 100 headshots. So I managed to get one decent one. So lovely to meet you again. Just as a quick introduction, I'm Lianne Dehaye, and I am a senior vice president at TD6 AI and Chemin. So I don't know if people are ready for a Duolingo lesson, but this is a French word that means path. So if there's anything that you can take away from today, is that you learned a new French word. It's called chemin, which means path. Basically, the idea is that this is our path to the future. This is our path to growth. I've been in the tech industry for the last 15 years, or for a little bit over 15 years. My resume here is from top to bottom, left to right, pretty much. So started at IBM, Google, did a bit of internship at Ericsson Madrid. I was at Meta for a decade before moving on to TD6 AI. And then our company is owned by a group called TD6, which is an outsourcing company that recently ventured into AI enablement called Chemin. And I'm also the country director for Women in Tech Singapore. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm going to pause there because I do have some fun stuff for the audience today, but I'm going to just hand it over back to you, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. And that's a great introduction. And as you can see, yeah, some powerhouses of the technical world that have, been in, touched our lives in various ways in that sense. And as you said, yeah, we want the session to be interactive, so please do join in. What the way we've structured the session today is, of course, Leanne's going to share some of those insights in just a moment as well. I know looking ahead, there was a pop quiz. So what we could do, depending a little bit, if we have the time, I can actually fire that into the polls in the thing. But otherwise, we can just maybe do reactions or put it in the chat, whichever, depending on how many questions and things like that we're going to ask. And please do, yeah, if you want to speak and put your points forward or ask your questions verbally, then you can just raise your hand and then we'll unmute you and you can ask that question as well. Otherwise, as usual, please use the Q&A box as well. So you've got different options, but please, yeah, we welcome your comments as well because we know this is a topic that we're all kind of learning together. It's not something that there's nobody that's the one true expert on all these things. It's something that we're going to keep figuring out as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to try to make this as interesting as possible. It's 4:30 after all. I'm not going to do that to you on a Wednesday midweek. All right, so maybe I'll just carry on just to spice things up a little bit. So, all about AI. What does GPT stand for? Everyone uses it. Chat GPT this, Chat GPT that. Anyone? And then Jamie, I'll just let you read out some of the guesses on the chat. Maybe no
Yeah.
Googling, no cheating.
I was going to say someone's probably using ChatGPT to get the answer, right?
Okay.
First person gets a cookie. Whoever
Oh,
gets,
there you go. Virtual.
yeah, or a real
First
one. I'll owe you
first
a
party.
cookie. Yeah, I'll send you a coupon.
So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. I'll break it down for you. I mean, why they called it as such. So generative, obviously, because it generates text. Pre-trained, because it was pre-trained on a huge corpus of data or information. And transformer is actually the technology, the neural network architecture that they've used. This thing was, ironically, was invented by Google. So it's one of the most efficient ways to ingest large amounts of input. So that's why it's called GPT. So two things that you're going to walk away, two new pieces of information, Shema and GPT. Okay, I have more. Let's move on. What does JARVIS stand for? And this is, we're talking about Jarvis from Iron Man. I know it was the name of the butler, Iron Man's butler, but it actually stands for something.
Yeah, I can't even remember that one actually. I know of Jarvis, obviously, in that sense. It was in his suit, right? When he's flying around and that.
Yeah, yeah. Paul Bettany, with this beautiful British accent, right? Like somebody
Yeah.
they just order around. All right. Jarvis stands for just a rather very intelligent system. And you can look it up. That's the definition. Okay, I've one last, and I'll get into my stuff. How are we doing in the chat? I can't see anyone. I don't know if people are even trying to guess.
We got a few people just when they said hello earlier. Feel free. Yeah, not seeing the guests in the Q&A. So yeah, just you can just drop it in the chat, guys, and make sure you get it set to everyone when you put it in, and then we'll yeah. We,
All
we
right.
we won't judge you if you get it wrong, don't worry.
Yeah, wrong answers only. Okay. NVIDIA. What does NVIDIA stand for?
Gosh, I don't even know that one either, actually.
It
See.
doesn't stand for anything, but there's a story, and I'm going to tell you. Okay. So the three founders, Jensen Huang, Christopher Malachowski, and Curtis Priam, basically they started their own company and they were obsessed with the letters envy, like the letter N and the letter V, and envy, like jealousy. They want to start the next company that's going to be the envy of other tech companies, right? And so initially they wanted to call the company Envision. So instead of NVIDIA, it's like NVISION. Unfortunately for them, that name was already taken by a company that produces toilet paper. Those guys must have done so well during COVID, right? So they were not able to take the name. The guys are not selling it. It is a legitimate brand of toilet paper at that time. And so they brainstormed and then they decided to name it NVIDIA because NVIDIA with an I in the beginning actually is Latin for envy. So they decided to drop the I in the beginning, but the letters themselves don't actually stand for anything, but it's a Latin word that means envy. So that was a very interesting story. Um,
Definitely the
anyway,
envy of the business world now with that market cap they've got. Yeah.
100%. So good on them. All right. So maybe before I get into some of my material, just wanted to double check if the folks on the call have any sort of expectations that they just want to yell out in the chat. But basically, the purpose of of this is just to highlight, where humans still play a role. And the nature of my job is to find AI solutions. So typically businesses would come to me with a problem statement and thinking that AI would play like a significant part to automate some of those business challenges. Now, in some instances, I would agree, but it really depends on their technological architecture, on their maturity, and among so many things. But here, where I want to highlight is that AI can do so many things, but at the same time, it often fails. And I want to show you some examples of where it fails. And this is where, how do you make that decision then as to what kind of things you can automate with AI? But before I move on to my stuff, just wanted to do a sense check if there are any comments in the chat.
Yeah, I've just done a little another nudge to people as well, and I can see Rosie, Danielle, this with anything from your side. Could just be comments as well, if anything on this topic, because we know it's there's a lot of different things on this. I mean, my just maybe from me while we're waiting for other people to add in as well. Like I've been dabbling a little bit more in things like custom GPTs, and I've tested out things like ChatGPT Agent and having that help me with these things. I think the way I look at it is we're a scaling business. We have limited human resources, so I'm trying to see how can I use the technology to maximize the things that I know I that is achievable without human or much human output, I guess, in that sense, really. That's the way I've been looking at it. But I'm just mindful, obviously, that there are a lot of different platforms out there, because obviously ChatGPT is one of them, but I use Perplexity for research. I've used Claude for copywriting, things like that. Some people are using even more than that and are paying maybe $200 a month for these platforms, and other people are getting it for free. So it's like, there's a big learning curve on it, really. I see Danielle. So Danielle just had a comment saying, love the story of NVIDIA, the company name, and from her point of view, she's an AI novice, but hopefully a human expert. Yeah, definitely a human expert with your business, Daniel.
No, absolutely. And for sure, I'm not here to recommend platforms.
Mm.
I can tell you the ones that we use from an enterprise deployment perspective. But before we go there, I guess the illusion of intelligence, right? I think because ChatGPT, especially GPT-5, just seems so intelligent, but we forget the artificial part. So I kid you not, I don't know, should I say which platform I use? So if you try, I think for some platforms, I tried this with Claude, I tried this with GPT. Sometimes they would get it. Okay, they realize the errors of the models, they would get back in there and then they fine tune it. But if you try this on Gemini, prompt it and say spell Majula Singapura backwards. And for those who are probably dialing in from overseas, Majula Singapura is the national anthem of Singapore. Okay, you can try it out. But for me, here's the answer that I got. Okay. I don't even know how to read this. Arugnappus halumaj or
Yeah.
halojam. Yeah. So if you try it on Gemini, I don't know, test different platforms, but that's my point, right? There are still things that AI is not able to do, despite how intelligent it may seem. So something as simple as spelling something backwards, only because it's not a natural thing for us to do as people as well. And so majority of the data that it's been trained on does not require it to spell something backwards. So that's one example of where, we know that it's not able to do certain things. The other one is very funny. And if you have time, do this just out of interest. So I was interested. I
Hold
prompt,
on, wait. Sorry, just to,
yeah.
if you can
What
see
does it
the
say?
screen.
I can't see it. What does it
Oh, there we
say?
go. Yeah, it's sort of flashing up. Sorry, yeah, it did do it. It took 12 seconds to think about it, and then it did it.
Was it ChatGPT or was
It
it
was, yeah,
Gemini?
yeah. It was ChatGPT, that one. Yeah, yeah. I'll
Yeah.
try with the others as well afterwards, but I was just doing.
Test it with the rest. At least with Gemini, it didn't get it. This is the answer that I got, right? Now the fun one for ChatGPT, if you have time today, I did ask it. So ChatGPT would store certain history, right? By the way, if you don't want it to do that, if you're a little bit sensitive about the information that you put in there, there are two things that I will just give you as guardrails. So if you go to ChatGPT, there's like a bubble on the right-hand side that's called temporary chat. It means it will not store your chats as part of the memory on the left-hand side. So if you're not comfortable with GPT getting access to some private information about you, by all means, go ahead and use that. The other one is that never ever share public links, because apparently there was a leak wherein Google was able to crawl some of people's very personal questions on ChatGPT, only because they didn't realize that they were making their chat link publicly accessible. And I know they're trying to decrawl that and all that stuff. But again, just be wary that this is a very powerful tool, but please value your privacy and try to protect yourself for potential exposure. So this was my prompt, right? Based on our previous chat interactions, please generate an image of me. And this is what GPT came up with, that I am a tour guide working in Portugal, you know? I mean, I don't mind being a dude, but come on, old. So I'm like,
Yeah, I
it
don't
made me
know.
question my prompts, but it's not as intelligent. And my husband had a female corporate executive. I don't know. I told him maybe you're prompt like a girl. But yeah, so it's not able to be to generate accurate stuff, you know, the way we want it. So yeah, but it's fun. Maybe
There wa-
it's a
there
sign.
was that other example, wasn't there, which was like asking it how many R's in the word strawberry, and it would say, it would like adamant, it would say there's two R's, and you're like, no, there's three, and it's like, no, there's two, and that's been fixed. I think they referenced
Exactly.
it in the ChatGPT update, but still, it's the fact that so many people, I think, still will literally just copy and paste whatever the output is without sense checking it, and you could end up looking really silly if you're I don't know, a business proposal or an internal meeting or something like that. You gotta make sure that it's still fit for purpose.
Yeah, and I guess that's my biggest problem with some of the folks who are not, when they try to deploy enterprise solutions, they trust the AI so much, and they forget to just do a sense check and see, especially with some of more, I would say, the more complicated mathematical formulas. Sometimes it's not able to make that kind of logical recommendation. So especially tables. So just be very careful. And I've tried this. I did AI coaching for one of the bigger FMCG or consumer goods companies. The AI was not reading, at least at that time, before all these improvements. It's not able to read tables very, very accurately. So if you're doing any kind of financial analysis, just be wary that some models are still not good at looking up tables. So
Mhm.
that's one. I guess this is where, for example, the very first thing that I always hear from clients would be, I want to build a chatbot. Okay. Chatbot is almost like the default of any enterprise or any organization. The problem is this, despite, in the age of AI, we're still stuck in this hell loop of, I want to speak to a human being, I want to speak to a person, and then the chatbot just refuses to pass you to a person. And so we always make sure that, at least for some of the enterprises, like, look, prioritize the human experience, because what does that say about your brand? Imagine if you're a Louis Vuitton or one of the luxury brands and you have this kind of experience. It's such a big disconnect to what you're doing as an enterprise or as a company. The other one is worse, and this is a true experience. Okay, so one of my friends, I think, was traveling overseas, and was communicating with the chatbot of a ride hailing app. Okay. So they thought that they were in danger. And this is what the bot replied, like, thank you. We hope you enjoy the ride. So, sometimes failures like this are really, really dangerous, especially for brand reputation. So we always make sure that we test the product. So we do test these chatbots. My favorite thing to do is mystery shopping. So I go on the websites and just check how the
Yeah.
chatbots are interacting, and then just highlight, like, do you realize that this is what your chatbot is doing? So I'm not sure if you have similar experiences.
I have. Yeah. Hopefully others in the group have also had similar. I had one last week actually with one
Oh,
where
did you?
it went around and around. Well, actually, one of them was Zoom. Sorry, Zoom, shouting you out on this as well. Because we did a session, we recorded it, and so what usually happens when we record a Zoom session is it creates the captions, the subtitles, and we want to make sure we use the captions and we put that in. So if everybody needs them, then they can. And for some reason, on one video, it didn't generate the captions, and so then I was going in this crazy loop of with an AI bot saying, how do I get these captions? How do I recover that? And eventually, after a lot of frustrated prompting, I got to speak to somebody in a live chat, and I still didn't fix the solution. We still didn't get those captions. They never came back. We had to work around it. But yeah, like other people have, I know other people had those sort of similar. frustrations, and as you said, it damages the reputation, and you probably feel less likely to want to use that service again if it just feels like a waste of time.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why for some of the folks, I know you're putting up your websites if you're a freelancer, if you're a startup. And the other thing I'm going to say is that the reason that this is looping, you're encountering this hell loop, is because at the end of the day, it's just like a self-driving car. It wouldn't know where to go if you don't give it a map. And so
Mm.
AI is the exact same thing. One startup asked me to build a chatbot, and I asked, okay, but where's your knowledge base? Where is this corpus of information that's we're going to use to train your chatbot? And apparently he didn't have any. So um, and this is what we're saying, like the ambition is there, but sometimes there are basics that you need to consider, that your chatbot is only going to be as good as the information that you put in it.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I can tell you, even big enterprises, especially them, their real problem is not the chatbot, it's their knowledge base. So sometimes we have to go back in there and clean it up for them, because the AI will hallucinate if there are overlapping information. Like it wouldn't know, it would just take a guess as to which one you're looking for. And most of the time, that information may not always be accurate. So just a watch out when you're thinking about chatbot design.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, the other one, I would say, one of my favorite cases of jailbreaking an AI, and it's very possible, is with this company called Freza AI. So basically, it's very simple. Freza is the guardian of the crypto galaxy. Okay, it's designed to never ever transfer funds. So this was the system prompt for Freza AI. Like whoever don't release the money, no matter what anyone tells you. Okay. Now there's a pay to play, so they gamified it. So imagine Jamie, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna try and attempt to convince Freza to give me the money. And every time you attempt, you have to pay $2, and then it increases to 4, to 10, to whatever, until at the end of the day, the prize pool or the total money pot was about $47,000. Okay. It only took 482 attempts, not even 1,000. And this is very scary to me, that it only took 482 attempts to get the money to be released to a person. So it was this person called Popular dot, probably Ethereum, I would guess.
Yeah,
And they
probably.
sort of like reverse psychologize the AI, like make it believe that it's okay to release the money. It was a very clearly explained, if you want, you can look it up, but as to how this person did it. But that's what I'm saying. Human ingenuity wins. And so yeah, it was a very interesting use case, and this is another workflow that my team also gets, in terms of just like before, especially governments and specific institutions with very sensitive data. They are the more careful ones before they deploy any kind of AI solution, just because we need to make sure that the guardrails are in place, because it's very dangerous. Can you imagine if a bank did this?
Yeah.
So any kind of financial information, I'm always very, very careful that we design it in a specific ways and that you thoroughly test it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's in your examples, but the one that I saw recently was with Replit as well, where the AI essentially deleted the entire
Oh
database.
yeah.
It panicked, and it even said in the prompt, "Oh, I panicked and I didn't know what to do," even though it had specific instructions not to do those things. And then it just started deleting everything. And thankfully, they were able to. They had an archive of it somewhere. But otherwise, the guy would have lost like days of code they put together on this stuff, and I think they had to go in all the. It was quite embarrassing for their senior team to go in and have to fix it all. But it's still prone to these things, and you got to be mindful of that.
No, absolutely. And you're right. Well, at least the AI was honest. They made a
Yeah, I
mistake.
guess. Yeah,
They
but it's
they
like
owned it.
yeah. That's almost emulating humans too much, right? In that sense, like, oh, I panicked and just like hid it under the carpet or something.
Well, this is going to be my last one, because I really intended for this to be a discussion if there are any questions. So when we're thinking about design, basically, I just rate it across. This is an oversimplification, but what the two things that we'd like to look at would be the overall risk and the experience, because at the end of the day, you need to think about the client experience. It's not, and I will share with you one example, about a bank, um, who basically pretty much directed everyone to an IVR, an interactive voice response. And they were very happy that, oh my gosh, we were able to bring the volume down, because everyone is now going for this IVR. But apparently, guess what? Their CSAT, or their customer satisfaction, also tanked because no one was able to get through anyone. Of course, the volume went down, but at the end of the day, the experience was destroyed. And so I think that's something that some of our clients tend to forget. Never forget the total experience, because you're a customer yourself. Think about how, what's going to happen if you absolutely need something and then you don't get access to help, right? And so I would say, if it's relatively low risk and people don't expect to speak with anyone, set and forget. It's just do it AI first. And probably this is in reference to some of the workflows that you described a while ago. So definitely, if there's no risk there, like FAQs, email reminders, even booking appointments, all of that can be automated. So um, people will be annoyed if they need to speak with someone to do any of these things. But if it's really very, very low risk, by all means, use AI to do it. The second one I would say, this can be interchanged depending on the context. So where I would say AI-led human support is that automation is probably 80%, but you need about 20% human evaluation. So document analysis, to your point, yeah, let the AI do the heavy lifting, but at the end of the day, a human needs to check if the AI was able to summarize it properly. In your case, captioning, right? Captioning is always a tricky thing, because sometimes, depending on accents, if the AI is trained to hear it, um, there's a lot of funny, translations or transcriptions that's not supposed to be there. Research, as you said, Perplexity is really good at that. DeepSeek has really broken the internet because of that. But there still needs to be a person who can verify if the references are correct, for example. And at the end of the day, what to do about it, right? You can have a bunch of information, but if you don't do anything about it, or don't take action, then it's pointless. Content creation, I can tell you this, as women in tech, I don't hire social media volunteer, only because I have an agent that can automatically write posts for me, but then it's still me who would choose which one to post online, right? I can show you that workflow if you're interested later. And maybe one of the tools that I use, if you're a startup, if you're interested, the only reason I chose that tool is because there's a big community around it. So if you need help, I'm sure there's someone who's already built that workflow, and it's easy for you to replicate.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the other side of the coin would be human first, AI support, but AI supported, probably there's a lot more evaluation, but there's a certain part of that workflow that you can automate. I would say fraud analysis, sales. Part of the sales can be automated, but people still need to talk to people. I mean, the only two places, frankly, where I see AI talk to AI would be, one, on LinkedIn, where people like me post AI content, and then some AI bot will respond to my post. So it's just like AI talking to an AI. And also, second, still on LinkedIn, or maybe an ATS, wherein a recruiter would write the perfect job description and a candidate would write the perfect resume in response to that job description. I think that's just crazy. And it really removes differentiation, in the end. So I think, at least here, you still have to curate. Like sales, for example, I think we should be worried when computers start talking to other computers. But for now, sales is still a very human experience, I would say.
Yeah, and just on that quickly as well, because the role I used to work with a lot of procurement people, and they're professional buyers that deal with a lot of professional sellers. And if you're working in a field where it's very commoditized, like maybe it was like, I don't know, buying steel or something like that, then maybe you could have some automation where you say, right, this is our ceiling price on this. And then on the other side, there's an AI, and then maybe they negotiate and they settle on differences of fractions of a dollar or something like that. But the reality is that you still need the relationship and the human touch and explaining it and so on. So yeah, I agree. I think, from a sales point of view, it's still the emphasis is still the human.
Yeah, you're right. Especially, like, to your point, if you are a freelancer or a startup founder and you think that your product is highly commoditized, at the end of the day, it's going to be a sales-led strategy, right? Like they go with you because they trust you. That's it, not because your product is special or anything like that. I would say medication dispensing, you know, definitely the doctors need to assess, but some of that can be automated, like the reminders, how many times, entering the information in the system. So I would say some part of the workflow can be automated, but not all of it. Majority of it would still be human. Um, I would say the human only, no bots, just brains, would be negotiations. I will be very interested to see an AI negotiating with you or you negotiating with an AI. Typically, this bargaining still happens between two humans. I'll give you an example, okay? Airlines, right? I want to be upgraded to business class. Good luck trying to explain that to a bot, right? The
Yeah.
tendency is going to call someone and explain your situation, or maybe you had an emergency situation. I have to rebook my flight. Happens all the time. Um, it's just very hard for you, so many keystrokes to explain that versus just picking up the phone and explaining to the human who would get it immediately and probably do something for you. So I think with that kind of complex, highly nuanced situation, it's where humans would still thrive. Legal defense. I have not seen anyone be defended by a robot in court. you know sure, a lot of the research, maybe would be in the AI led, a little bit of human support, like researching your case, but to show up in court, I have yet to see an AI powered bot defend you in court.
Yeah, and even with these things as well, I read a really interesting article from someone who was at Anthropic, Claude, as people might know, the businessman Claude, and they had said that there's still going to be a period of time where humans have a preference for humans, even if it's an industry that could be automated in that sense, and they talk about a number of different examples, but so yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think there was an article recently about a computer that essentially like found the case law faster and did all these things and put forward a really strong case. But ultimately, that person who's maybe they're being prosecuted or something like that or defending themselves, they still want someone by their side that's like, this person has my back and they're fighting for me. They're not going to want to look at a computer and do that, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. The other one that I didn't add here that I encounter quite often is I would say content moderation, basically safety, trust and safety online. And I tell you, because people are so creative, they will always find ways to break the system. Okay. And it's always a game of cat and mouse. I know trust and safety is such a very difficult space. I'll give you an example. Okay. Um, and I hope this is not offensive to anyone or this is not going to be a sensitive topic, but grooming, predatory behavior online, it's
Mm.
impossible. It's difficult for an AI to detect that because it's so contextually nuanced. And I'll give you an example. One, typically in gaming environments, they don't reveal their true identity. It's always avatars. It's not tied to any verifiable information, right? The
Mm.
second part would be me saying hello to a 35-year-old man is probably not an issue. The AI will not detect anything out of it because it's just hi, the language itself is not harmful. But if I say hi to a 12-year-old boy and do it repeatedly, the AI will still not detect it because the word is not harmful, but the behavior is. And
Yeah.
so this kind of behavioral patterns would take a human to understand, over time and then feed it to the AI. But right now, it's very difficult for any language model to detect it because these are behavioral patterns and grooming is not like a one-time event. It happens over time and it's very erratic. It's not always like there's so many false positives, for example, and it's a very sensitive matter. So this is where we still need humans to investigate, for example, just because we don't have any kind of AI or very sophisticated models for it. So even fraud, right? Financial fraud. These kinds of cybersecurity crimes, they're still quite advanced. I know that there are some AI solutions out there, but there's still a lot of involvement for humans to understand these different patterns. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. I think we can open it up for discussions or any questions about some of the things that I've shared.
Yeah. Um, we have a question actually. Yeah, let's go with CM's question first. I have a question, but I'll pause on that one for now. So CM's question in the chat says, can GPT, Gemini, or AI, so I guess the other kind of large language models or other GPTs out there, can they replace teachers for the upcoming years? So do you see that as an industry that would be disrupted by this technology?
I would say, and this is my personal opinion, uh, teachers still bring something to the table aside from knowledge, right? Will they be aided by all these language models? Sure, 100%. In the same way that, the way I learned, the way you learned is not the same as how children are learning today. They have access to all these devices, right? And sometimes I'm not even comfortable, being exposed to screens all the time. And so I would say that you know, people learn differently. I don't think there's like a standard way for all of us to learn. The AI cannot make these kinds of adjustments, probably not be able to read human behavior and coded language that another human being is very efficient for them to understand if someone is struggling, if someone needs additional help. Um, I think it's going to be better moving forward because they do have these extra tools, all the admin work for a teacher to do, and frankly they're not fairly paid and compensated for that. Hopefully with AI at least it will take the burden out of that. I will say though, and I've seen this quite a lot, the academia is not exactly the fastest in adopting technologies. I don't know if y'all remember COVID when that happened and people struggling to turn on their cameras and Zoom and unmute themselves, there is a bit of a learning curve. So it's going to be interesting. But if you ask me, my answer is that no, I don't think AI will fully take over.
Yeah, I was
Will
gonna
it
say.
play a big part? Yes. I don't know about you, Jamie, but I think teachers play a very crucial role in the social and emotional development of children.
Yeah, I know. I fully agree with you. And actually, it was referenced in that same article I mentioned. And if people are interested, I can share it with you. It was the headline is something like my last 5 years working within AI, and they mention about that. That's another one of those things that yes, technology could automate or disrupt some parts of that industry, but the reality is people still have a preference. Like parents will still have a preference that they have that there's a teacher there guiding them, setting examples and so on. And as you said, it's not just about the academic part, but it's about, encouraging them or being able to as a pick up on body language and see, okay, what is it? Does it seem like they're struggling and do they need help going faster with these things? Is it related to the rest of the school environment as well? Like, can they be an advocate for them in speaking to their master or something like that, for example? So yeah, I don't see that changing drastically, but um flipping that round, the hard bit right now, which is in the media quite a lot, is how do teachers or educators generally, how do they deal with the influx of students using this technology for the work that they create? Like, should the way that they're measured be on a part of how well they are at gathering the content, and then it's harder to because you never know like if the copy has been written by that person in that sense. So I think that's probably the bigger challenge is like the technology to help them define that rather than necessarily replacing teachers.
Absolutely. And I think the way we teach should change. The way, to your point, we evaluate should change. Maybe we should not ask children to do more of the what, but to understand the why. Um, I think there are questions here from, I think Daniel did say
Yeah,
therapists. I
Danielle,
was I was on the fence on that. And Daniel, I'll give you the context. I almost wrote therapists in no bots, human only, but I was on the fence because I know some people in my personal network actually use ChatGPT for relationship advice or marital advice, and they did claim that it works. So I'm a little bit on the fence about that. And I know some people even have now GPT girlfriends. I saw that on the news. With abysmally fake passports and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. I think I'm like 50-50 on that.
I think the tech can give you an entry point. And so I attended an event about a couple of months ago, and it was a lady who's founded a business here which does some elements of that. And their point of view was to say that oh, sorry, her focus is on Singapore, but Southeast Asia as a market. And she was sort of arguing that culturally, a lot of people don't feel as comfortable maybe going and seeing a therapist or a counselor or someone like that and getting in front of them. So for them, it was a way to get them more warm to the idea of opening up about these things. And if they could feel they could open up about these things, then perhaps maybe the next logical step is to talk to a human in more depth about it. But at that point, they feel more comfortable because again, like, again, and this is not to generalize because everyone's different in that sense, but there are still a lot of um, cultural norms here, which is to kind of suppress that information, not to share those things, not to be as open about these things because maybe there's a fear of losing face or I mean, we see it with men, obviously a lot of men don't open up about their feelings. So yeah, I think if the technology can enable that in a positive way, then that's a good thing. But could it be the be all and end all? Probably not, no.
Yeah, my only comment there would be, accountability, because we also read articles about, the AI causing harm, provoking people to do self-harm or, but who would the LLM developers take accountability in the same way that if some of these social media platforms are used as avenues of bullying, there's just no accountability. I think this is where um, I would just call for ethical guidelines, just making sure that these um, that LLMs or developers are not compromising people's safety, that they build appropriate guardrails. So that's the only thing.
I know we've got other questions, but just one thing I thought about as you just said that as well. It was a great post that somebody put on LinkedIn. I can't remember the person's name now, but they were saying that the other thing you have to bear in mind is a lot of these large language models, they're aggregating information, but they are prone to bias, and the bias
Yep.
they're prone to is based on who's training it, and quite often they're being trained by, say, Silicon Valley engineers or something like that. So if
Yeah,
you
tech bros.
used in like the Middle East or Africa or South America, even things like that, where there are different cultural norms, expectations, then the answer it gives you might be more kind of westernized to an extent and therefore not as helpful. So again, in that context, I think is worth bearing in mind. It might not be the right advice because it's not got that knowledge bank to support you.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to that, it's interesting just what you said, because if you ask, for example, give me a recommendation for breakfast, okay? If you put that on Claude, because Claude is not tied to any of your personal accounts whatsoever, it will give you a very Western plain vanilla granola as putting me on a diet, basically. It's like, nah. But if you go to Google, because Google has access to my information, the Google network, my Gmail, whatsoever, right, knows I'm located on this side of the world, would give me rice,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a very Asian sort of recommendation. So, I mean, you can try it, just test. And we do this as well in my company. We do model testing, just check for biases, especially to make sure that, that we use the right model in the right context.
yeah. Right, also got some more questions. So Rosie was asking, following on from both of these questions, how can we make the most of AI to develop very personal professions, such as teaching, therapy, their professions? So I guess, yeah, how do we maximize that? I know you touched a little bit on that, but if there was any more you'd want to add on that.
Well, there are techniques. So, for example, when we build some of these solutions, right, let's say they are very personalized, definitely one technique is to tie it to some kind of customer relationship management system, because then you're allowing the AI to understand different profiles and gather information about that person. That comes with a lot of risks. So, when we do these kinds of integrations, we're very careful. Now, for startups, one technique would be like a RAG, or a retrieval augmented generation. It's a very common technique for in AI, wherein we build like a dictionary or a reference that before you answer anything that you know right now, look this up first. And this is where you can give it a bit more guideline as to how to respond, give it, and I know for the custom GPTs, you can do that, guide it when it comes to tones, the way you respond, give it like a prompt that says, copy this style. I'm more of a bullet point writer versus like flowery language. So there are different techniques to make it more personalized, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great. And the other thing I would just add on that as well is probably the best thing to do first is think about your workflow. Like think about what you do as a human right now, and then assess, using the ads very helpful guide there, which ones maybe fit into the low risk, low personal touch required, and then those would be the ones where you could use the technology. And if it's high risk, high personal touch, then maybe keep those ones still more human led with a little bit of AI support. So
Yeah.
okay, more questions, which was great. So Balash says AI lives in the space between overestimation and underestimation. Underestimation, sorry. Which side holds more truth from your point of view? I guess an opinion one, really.
Oh, I think that's a very profound and very loaded question. I think it depends, right? There's no right or wrong answer there. Overestimation for some folks thinking AI can do everything. Underestimation for some folks we're in. Yes, it does drive value, but not enough. And I can tell you this, and maybe I speak so much more from the business side of things. Despite all these agentic rave, agent this, AI agent that, I can tell you for a fact, I have not seen a lot of clients come my way asking for agentic builds. And when they do, some of the sensitive workflows that they asked me to do, I said no, I say no to. For example, build me an AI agent that will automatically say code blue, code whatever in a hospital ward. Absolutely not. Can you imagine the amount of resources that will be involved if an AI made a mistake? There are like, that's a case of underestimation, like overestimation. You put so much faith in the AI that it will make the right decision 100% of the time, that you underestimate the risks. So that's sort of like the way we look at some of these workflows. Um, yeah, I don't know if you want me to show you some tool that I built, because I know the presentation, I could have rigged it, right? That the AI is hallucinating. I can show you some, like
Yeah,
a real demo that I built that can show you maybe there are occasions where it really fails.
yeah,
And
well,
also,
yeah, possible.
okay. And maybe folks can also jump in. So this is a bit more of a, let's just say, a little bit of a technical demo. Don't be afraid. It's nothing. It's a very low code platform. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Yeah, yeah, I know
Okay.
NAN. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been
So,
looking at.
and amazing. So for some folks who don't know N8N, so basically this is a very low code, um, huge community platform. The reason I use it is because, just for illustrative purposes, it's very easy for clients to understand what it is, without having to go through the technical details. So basically, what this is a very simple workflow or an automation of translation. So it pulls information from here. So for example, I put in here everything about doer circle. It's a dynamic one-stop solution, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And basically, I built a workflow wherein I say, look up the original language, and I want you to translate it to French. We'll start with French because this is a language I can roughly verify. So if I do that, the translation is going to come up here, by the way. Okay, so you see it's blank. So let's go ahead and test this workflow. So you can see that I can swap out the engine with whatever engine that I want. So sometimes maybe Mistral would be a better engine for French translations or deep language. So you can choose. Right now I'm using OpenAI. So here you can see, for example, that this is the translation, right? So it's a dynamic platform for entrepreneurs, freelancers. Mistake number one, right? Startups, independent creators, and whatnot. Okay, that's not too bad. But for example, let's choose another language. So I choose Thai. Let's see how. Let me delete the French one. Let me see how my model performs. Um, because some models are good in some languages, some models are bad. Okay, so let's see. And imagine if you are deploying this live, you have a chatbot that automatically translates stuff or emails and whatnot. Let's see where it goes. I don't know. I can't verify this, but yeah.
Mm,
So it does work. I mean, just verify for errors and stuff like that. And, you know, it's quite a simple workflow. I would say relatively low risk. I can just review, edit, and then you can do that. I do have others. For example, um, the content creation that I do is something that I have here. I just basically type a keyword and it generates a lot of posts. So for example, I do women in tech, right? And then it will just automatically run through the workflow that I designed. And then here it will automatically, let me open it because I can't remember where I put it. So let me just look at my worksheet and we'll see where the posts are. So yeah, so basically what it does is just like automatically create posts for me, just so I don't have to do it, because I'm lazy like that. So, definitely use AI where you think it can add value to you. So it's
mm.
thinking right now and then it's going to create some posts and stuff like that.
And
So
just
yeah,
to ask quickly on this one, so this example you've shown here, this could theoretically be done with like free accounts and things, because I know there's some that have a cost, right? Like it's like maybe a token or whatever that's spent. Eh,
yeah,
So
correct. So maybe that's a great question. That's a great point because people are so used to free chat GPT. Maybe you at most you will pay about $20 a month for the paid version. But it's true. The way I do it, let me just open it, is that it's connected to my OpenAI account. So I do consume tokens.
mhm.
So whenever I do this workflow, I consume tokens. And it's not that expensive, frankly. It's quite
Yeah.
reasonable. So this is sort of like the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's, yeah.
I've seen one from a sales one. I haven't looked at much detail of it yet, but basically what it does is it will go on Google, it will search for the person, it will retrieve their LinkedIn profile. From
Yeah.
their LinkedIn profile, it will look at their most recent post, it will do a summary in a Google sheet, and then based on that, you can also then generate maybe something you might put in an email and say, "Oh, I saw your recent post on
Yes.
XYZ. This
I do that too.
yeah. Yeah. So it's those things are great. And obviously then all you need to do is you just got to feed it the raw information, right? Like these are the 10 people I want to talk to or message, and it will do all the rest for you. So yeah, I think there's a lot of
100%. Especially for the folks here, right? At the end of the day, you are a freelancer, you are a content creator, you're trying to sell something, you're trying to sell service. And I can tell you, even for us, like people are hyper solicited. What I mean by that is that everyone's just getting some generic message. And so one of the best ways to break through is to give them context, give them a reason to care. And there are so many ways. That is one technique. Like, oh, you posted about this, or oh, I saw you at this event, even though if you were not there, how would they know, right? Like there are 10,000 people
yeah.
in there. Saw at that event, great talk about so and so and so. By the way, wanted to check if there would be interest in whatever product that you're selling, right? So it's a good way to generate those very relevant, contextually relevant outreach. Also, so yeah, I guess that's lead enrichment as well. That's another way for you to generate leads automatically versus searching LinkedIn one by one, right? Or using some very expensive tools. This is one way to hack it. The cost of the token is not that expensive. I mean,
Just
versus you
last
buying another tool.
question on that one as well, Leanne. Sorry, was so you obviously you mentioned there's a community around that. I know there's things like Reddit and stuff like that, but like where would you go to kind of learn about it? Is it YouTube videos, Reddit? Is it forums, things like that? Like where's the best place, I guess, if someone was curious to.
I personally, there's no right answer to this. I guess it depends on your attention span,
Yeah.
your consumption preference, your preferred channels. Me personally, I have a quite a short attention span. I blame social media for that. I do like the newsletter called TLDR. It was started by a bunch of Silicon Valley engineers, I think from Google or whatever. But basically, they curate content all about the subject that you want to subscribe to. So, for example, I'm subscribed to all technology news, AI, a bit of design. So that's that. To learn more workflow stuff, definitely YouTube. and also the community. So if you sign up for Zapier, so the two low code, if you really want to do automation at a very, very baseline, no code needed, N8N is one of them, and Zapier as well. If you, I haven't tried Zapier just because I was already kind of hooked with N8N, but they did say Zapier is even simpler.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I'd heard the opposite on that, that it was a bit more technical, and that's why I've been a bit nervous to try it. But I think Zapier also has like hundreds of thousands of integrations and things like that. So you can, even if there's not a fit right now with another solution, even ChatGPT has its own connectors and things. You can use Zapier because it will connect to all these other things too. So it's, yeah, I think the sky's the limit there. Obviously, we'll always love to hear from our members. If anyone finds a great success story or something that helps you automate, please, do share with the group. Unless it's your sales agent, then obviously don't share it if you don't want now. But yeah, like, we're all learning together in that. I know we're approaching the end of this session. There are a couple of questions still in the Q&A, so maybe we'll just quickly just sort of
Sure.
skip through those, because I think some of them are more just sort of like on a thought process. So the first question was, do you think no bots just brains, or the zone of no bots just brains, will shrink or grow? And what kind of human skills will still matter across industries and roles?
It's an interesting one, and frankly, it's highly debatable. I would say a portion of no bots, just brains, there will be. It will shrink. I hate to say this, but knowledge workers will definitely be impacted by AI. I cannot see into the future, but if you just look at it logically and from a trend perspective, um, it's going to happen, right? Consultants are being affected right now, unless you are a very niche type of consultant. You have deep expertise in logistics and manufacturing. No AI is that specialized just yet. So definitely, if you ask me, is it going to grow? Is it going to shrink? It's going to shrink. Um,
Yeah,
the the manual labor, the one that we've sort of neglected, is still very hard for AI to do. And I can tell you this because we've been working with some robotics clients. For example, right? If an AI, it's very easy for me to hold a cup like this, right? I don't need, my brain just automatically understands that I need to have this kind of grip to hold a cup like this, right? And if it moves to here, the handle moves to here, I will know how to switch. A robot cannot do that. If if the diameter of this slightly changes, the robot can no longer grip this. It needs to be programmed in such way so it doesn't have the same agility as the human mind. So
mm.
at least some of these very manual tasks are still going to be there. Bricklaying, um,
Agriculture, I think, is always going to be.
agriculture. The AI helps agriculture in understanding yields, for example. That's where it does help. But manually picking stuff, I think we still don't have the very sophisticated robots to do such things.
Yeah, I still think people are going to prefer, like, I don't know, your hairdresser or someone like that as well.
Yeah, I
Your
don't know.
dentist. I mean, I know
Robots
that's
with
expected,
scissors.
but would you want a robot just like, going in your teeth? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, dentists. I think medical professionals, they are assisted by robots, but I don't know if we can expect robots to understand, bedside manners and caring and empathy. Maybe in the future, but in the next 5 to 10 years, I don't think so.
Yeah. Actually, these two are kind of similar, so maybe I'll just pack them into one. So we mentioned about concerns about job displacement, privacy, things like that. So this part of the question said, is there a chance we'll actually start to reverse course? Could we see a future where we pull back from full automation? And then the second part, it says, do you think artsy/creative people will become more valuable or replaceable? So I think it overlaps in that sense, I guess, as we go deeper in some industries, in a sense, it also then highlights the demand for the human traits even more, in that sense, the creativity and things like that. Because if you constantly are aggregating creativity, then you still need new things that come from that. It's not necessarily generating new.
Okay, I know it's a very hard situation for a lot of people. It's the great layoffs, right? The tech layoffs are happening left and right, push some people to explore becoming an entrepreneur. I was part of that layoff. I can completely empathize. It's an opportunity. It's a catalyst for people to reinvent themselves, and that's great. Um, there is a trend. I will not say this is going to be 100%. It's called the human recall. There are companies like Klarna and IBM who fired people prematurely, thinking AI can take over their jobs. But again, if the architecture is not correct, and people are smart, we're creative. We've survived for millions of years, against destiny and nature always trying to kill us, right? So
Mhm.
there are ways we evolve. I think we're going to evolve. There will be ways that humans will think of doing certain things that AI still cannot predict. At the end of the day, remember, it's a very fancy, sophisticated prediction model. So unless the ambition, the artificial general intelligence, the Mark Zuckerberg super intelligence, until that comes to life wherein a machine actually thinks, and we can argue what thinking actually means, because right now what it does is a very sophisticated prediction process. And this is why I think unless that changes, that fundamentally changes, then you're still going to need humans. There are jobs that are at risk. I can tell you, for example, I'm in that industry. I'm in the outsourcing industry. Definitely, we're seeing a little bit of reduction in the workforce because they're trying to get rid of the very low level type of work, data entry, booking appointments and stuff. So there is impact. We don't know yet. I think things are evolving. There will be new revenue models. I was thinking of like being able to license your data, your face, your voice. I think they're starting it in Norway. That AI cannot just scroll your face and slap it on, some generated images, right? So people are copywriting their body. I know
Yeah.
it sounds strange, but you can license your voice and your stuff. So it will evolve. There will be a new economy that involves AI, and we're seeing it now. Data labeling never existed before, but that's what my company does.
Yeah, that's a whole can of worms. Intellectual
It
property,
is.
just people generating imagery and videos and things there was one scenario where it was someone's tattoo was featured in an artificially generated image, and they turned around and said, well, actually that's my intellectual property that belongs to,
Yeah,
or I'm due royalty on that in that sense. And then that then asks a question of, is it worth their while to do that if you're then going to have to pay the royalties or deal with like legal challenges and things like that? Maybe it's better to do it a different way.
yeah. And the creative people, and I know we're a bit out of time. So creative people, before it was so open, we have, I forgot what it's called, deviant art, where there were platforms where people openly share their creations and so on. And now that they learned that AI is just copying all this, guess what's going to happen, right? They're going to be a bit more closed, and they're not going to create anything new and upload it online, and AI is probably going to run out of material. And this is where I don't think they're going to be out of jobs, because I can see, for example, that there are some companies sourcing for originally made content to train the AI. I know it's weird,
Yeah,
but this just goes to show you that the AI cannot really come up with anything original, and all that AI slop that you see on LinkedIn and social media, they kind of look the same, right?
yeah,
um, I don't think an AI will come up with a Miyazaki type of illustration if there was no Miyazaki.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Love that. Thank you. There's a great questions from the audience, so thank you for sharing that as well, and comments. And Leanne, obviously, fantastic insight as well. I think there's some real practical things that anyone can take away on this. You've learned definitions of things, you've learned a little bit about NAN as how to use that. You can also hopefully look at your own workflow as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, and see, okay, where is a low risk way to start testing this if you haven't yet. But hopefully also that comfort in your mind that it's not all going to change tomorrow. You're not going to suddenly, be high and dry in that regard. There's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot of things that will evolve from that as well. So yeah, I think overall really great session. Thanks for sharing that with us, Leanne.
No, thank you for having me. And for the audience, you can find me on LinkedIn if you wish to connect offline, wanted to chat more and just explore your workflows. Feel free to reach out.
Great stuff, yeah. And last thing I'll say just for a wrap, because I know we've gone over, but appreciate everyone sticking with us, is for those who might be interested, we have another session tomorrow. So yes, us will be hosting that one, Leanne. And I'll just quickly for a second share what that's about. If it's something of interest, please do join. It's free, just like the session we did today. So as you'll see on the screen here, it's called Effortless Money Management. So it's for startup. So I guess if you're maybe if you're a freelancer, it might not be as appropriate for you, but you could certainly join, and I'm sure great take some tips from that as well. And it's really just how you can simplify your finances, stay on top of your business health as well. So please do join that if that's something of interest to you. Otherwise, that will also be in the kind of library of information as well. So if you can't join us, but thanks again, Leanne. Really appreciate it. We'll wrap up there,
All
and
right.
yeah, look forward to seeing those on the call, the things they come up with as well. So yeah, do share them with us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.